This is always the awkward part.
Hey, we're live already.
Oh, I mean, whoa, whoa!
Yeah, it like went
It
up
didn't
real quick.
really, it didn't really do the blink that it usually does.
I was about to do like a Halo countdown to beep, beep, beep.
Is that from some video game? The
Yeah,
Halos game?
Halo, Mario Kart, and all that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the countdown of Mario Kart. I know that. All right, so I guess I should introduce this. This is why no one watches the second season so far. We have like 4 views, and it's because we always mess up the beginning here. But
Now you know what?
that's
It's
okay.
not. It's not about we messed up. It's just that people haven't seen us much yet on the second season. They thought we quit. They thought we quit. It's been months before. It's been months before we did, the second season. But it's just like a TV show.
Yeah,
It's gonna
exactly.
be months before we do
Except for
second
the
season.
except for the season break between season 2 and 3 of Ninja Turtles. That was a week,
Oh,
which was weird because the third season is supposed to take place 3 months after this end of the second season, but they had to push the second season back because the movie was coming out,
yeah.
and they didn't want to remind people that there's a much better version of Ninja Turtles on TV, and so.
People, we're at our second season. I'm gonna just make it official. We're at our second season. Yes, it's been months. You haven't heard from us, but we're at our second season, and we're doing real big things right now.
Yeah, like
So anyway,
talking shit about Ninja Turtles.
come
Anyway.
view us.
Maybe I should put this link on Facebook, see if anybody clicks it. Probably not. Actually, there is a show that I watch sometimes. It's called Sword and Laser, and they do what we do, but they have way better cameras. Their whole thing is they talk about fantasy and science fiction books. They used to have a
Yeah.
talk show on YouTube, but now it's just a podcast, but they do it via Google Hangouts, like what we're doing. And
Okay.
their shows always begin with like 10 minutes of them just fucking around. So, but anyway, if you haven't seen the show before and you haven't turned off yet, which is surprising, we are 2 lifelong friends and film buffs with very different movie tastes who get together and talk about movies. I am non-critic Dustin, and you are, sir?
Non-critic Will, and we are 2 non-critics.
Correct. We say that because we're not really film critics, we're more just film buffs. You can buy reviews for a couple websites, doesn't matter.
We more so give our opinion and insight on whatever movie. Yeah, I mean, yeah,
We
but
do exactly what a critic does, but we're not as snobby about
but we're not critics. We're not official critics. We're in the training stage.
it. There we go. We're 2 apprentice critics.
Padawans.
Padawans. Well, anyway, today we're talking about a movie that non-critic Will suggested.
Yeah.
It's a sci-fi thriller, I guess you could call it.
Yep.
Starring Ethan Hawke. It's called Predestination. Just came out very, very recently. It's from the directors of Daybreakers, which is a film we reviewed on the show that I didn't like at all. But non-critic Will tell you why he chose this film.
Well, yeah, I know that there may seem like there's an elaborate reason why I chose this movie, but there's actually not. Like, I mean, I saw the trailer of this movie, and it just pretty much it looked interesting. I know there was one specific part in the trailer where you see Ethan Hawke. He's in a car, and out of nowhere he disappears. He like flashes out like it's about time travel. So I'm assuming he travels through time, but the whole car it doesn't explode, but the windshield, the glass break and everything, and he's gone. So I was like, just from that scene, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give it a look. It's Ethan Hawke. Yeah, that was the hook, as we learned in school. That was the hook of the. But I just was said to myself, I'm gonna watch it, see what it's about. I know there's of course many different renditions of time travel in movies. So I want to see how this one is going to differ from what we've already seen. So I saw this movie actually when I told non-Kirk Dustin I was coming from, but I remember I was actually going to. I was going to Utah for this past Thanksgiving. I was going to Utah to celebrate Thanksgiving, and I put it on my phone just so I can watch movies, just because I didn't know if the flight had any movies that they were playing. So I put it on my phone, and I was actually shocked on how crazy this movie was. It was more so crazy and kind of trippy for me. Um, I don't know if anybody's gonna watch this movie, but for this show, I may be revealing some stuff just to forewarn you guys. Already, I'm gonna reveal some stuff, but you know, the movie is about time travel, but it goes into a deeper depth, not just about time travel, but about also gender changing, gender transformation. I see Monica Dustin with the face.
well, the only reason I made that face is because the gender thing is an element of the film. It's more of a plot device than anything else. I would say when you mentioned it delves deeper, I thought you were going to say it really examines the concept, which is the title, which is predestination. Some things happen no matter what you do. And so that's what I thought you were going to say. That's why I made that face.
Well, I mean, with me when I saw this movie, you know, when you said you're right. When you said things are going to happen no matter what they do, but for me, when I first saw the movie, there was so much going on, and so much that I was confused about at first. I was just like, wait, what? Wait, what? What's supposed to go on? What's supposed to happen? Wait a minute. So, overall, I liked the movie. I thought it was a very interesting take on time travel because, to my knowledge, every time travel movie that I can think of, for me, I don't know about non-Critics Dustin, but for me, it hasn't really taken this step. Not even Terminator. And Terminator is a perfect example of time travel and just being confused. Because when you go off to say, hey, I'm going to send you back in time to save my mother, but you're actually the father of me, and you're going to have sex with my mom and make me, and I'm going to be a general of the army in the future. Like, that's a whole big twist, but this was crazy on its own level.
Well,
to me.
No, I get what you mean. There were a lot of movies that this reminded me of. The biggest one, I think, was Minority Report, for two reasons. One being that Ethan Hawke is a time agent, where they travel through time to prevent crime before it happens.
Yeah.
Either read or seen Minority Report, you know that's what that's about. Except what they do instead of traveling through time is they have these precogs, these people who can predict the future. They're precognitive, and they go based on their predictions. But in Minority Report, there's this, in the film. I'll just do the film because I assume more people have seen the movie than have read the story. In the movie, there's Tom Cruise's character is trying to prove his innocence, and in so doing, almost pretty much kind of becomes guilty. Yeah. But it's done in a very tricky way. He was set up, basically. Spoilers if you haven't seen Minority Report in the last 12 years. And this movie reminded me of that very, very much. Ethan Hawke's a time agent, but also I could tell just by the title, Predestination, that they're going to there's going to be something in the film that they're going to try and prevent, and it's going to happen anyway. And so that's not a spoiler, it's in the title, and that's a big, big problem I have most of the time with time travel. Something that comes to mind is the show Heroes. I stopped watching Heroes, like most people, during the second season. I thought the first season was brilliant, but the second season was just really, really lost its way. And I stopped watching it the minute what I predicted started to happen, which is there's this samurai that the character of Hero has always idolized because he's a legend. And he goes back in time and he finds out that that legend is a drunken English person. And I was like, if they fucking do this so that Hero is the one who actually accomplished all these amazing feats, and he was really reading about himself, I'm going to be so mad because that's so cliche and I'm sick of seeing it. And the minute they started to show him do that, I stopped watching the show forever. I haven't seen it since.
You want to know something that's, don't mean to interrupt you, but something that's actually funny about what you just said is the fact that I recently started watching Heroes again because I only made it through season 1 and 2. I've seen all of season 1 and season 2, but there's also a third and fourth season.
Yeah.
So when I attempted to rewatch Heroes again, I only really made it to the first season.
The first season is so good.
I just stopped.
It should have been just one season. It was such a good season.
Yeah.
But anyway. So basically what I'm saying is this is nothing new in terms of a concept. That's all been done before. But I don't care. That's fine. And so usually that really, really bothers me. But in this film, it didn't bother me. In fact, they did it the only way you could have done it that wouldn't have bothered me, which is where I don't really want to spoil anything, but what I'll just say is...
Yeah, let me not spoil because it is a new movie, so I'm
watching. Yeah. Okay, what I'll say is this: it's called Predestination. So there's a concept that there are some things are predestined. No matter what you do, they're always going to happen. And this movie is all about exploring that. And so it does it in a way where you learn about the past, and then you learn about the future, and then you learn about how they connect. And it's told in a very... It's told linearly, which I was surprised about. It's told from point A to point B, but because it's about time travel, there are flashbacks and things like that. Now, the way they connected everything that happened in the future to everything that happened in the past in the now made perfect sense. I'm not saying... I mean in the storytelling point of view. Pardon me. The gender change that you mentioned, I'm not sure how accurate something like that is, but it made sense within the reality of the film, and it worked for the service that they were... I mean, it serviced the plot in a way that made it all cohesive. And so we're making this sound like a really, really confusing movie, but it's not that confusing, I don't think. Because once all the pieces click into place, you're like, oh, okay, I get it. At least for me. Did that happen to you, or were you at the end like, what?
Well, for me, it kind of clicked, but because of the fact that, number one, I'm on a plane, waiting to go, waiting to land at my destination and have Thanksgiving dinner and stuff like that, and spend time with people I care about. I was just like, wait, what? And on top of the fact that they had, I guess this takes into account, but they got my dinner order wrong. Like the flight attendants, they got my dinner order wrong. So I know this is a whole side thing, but they got my dinner order wrong. And they were like, oh, the lady, like 30 minutes later, she came to me. She's like, oh, sir, I'm sorry. I told you that we had this and that we didn't have this available. We didn't have this on the menu. To compensate for it, I would like to offer you do you want one of our alcoholic beverages or whatnot? So, they let me, yeah. So they let me have a rum and coke. So I had a rum and coke while I was watching Predestination. So
Okay,
that
so
one,
maybe that.
that was, I mean, regardless, I mean, even so, I was just like, this is a pretty trippy movie, but because
It is.
at the time I was a little buzzed. I was just like, man, this is crazy. Like, it wasn't really. I mean, it clicked overall at the end. It did click, but it just took a while. I was just like, wait, what?
Yeah,
What?
I think I started to figure everything out a little over halfway through,
Yeah,
and I didn't have it totally figured out, but I had enough of it too that when the one thing I didn't figure out was explained, I was like, oh, okay. um, but that's all right. I don't mind if I figure out a plot ahead of time, as long as the characters are interesting enough, and that's the strongest thing about this movie, I think, is because I enjoyed the movie quite a bit, and it's mostly because the performances of the central actors are so strong.
yeah.
I don't know the actress's name. I'm sorry, I haven't really seen her in anything else, but I know obviously Ethan Hawke, and they were both fantastic together. If the whole movie took place in that bar that it starts out in, with them
Yeah,
having a discussion, I would have been
yeah,
perfectly happy with it. And because they play off each other so well, and their conversation felt so, although they're talking about some really weird stuff, it came off. It was played very, very, very naturally, and it reminded me of what a good actor Ethan Hawke is. Not that I ever forgot, I guess, but he's very, very good in this.
yeah,
Because so much of the movie, the first half of the movie, is him listening to a story, and that's something a lot of actors can't pull off well, is listening.
yeah.
So it was pretty good. What do you think of the performances?
I thought the performances were pretty good. I mean, pretty spot on.
I mean, given the
I don't,
fact
I don't.
that you know what the change is in that movie.
Yeah, like I don't know what. It's hard to say something about the performances of the characters without revealing the story.
Well,
I
no, I think
mean,
we can say this because it happened very early on. Is that the man who, let's be honest, from the get-go doesn't really seem like a man. That Ethan Hawke is having a conversation within the bar was once a woman, and
yeah,
he is telling Ethan Hawke his life story in
yeah,
order to win a free bottle of booze. And you see what this person was, what they looked like, how they talked, all that. You see their life. So you see that same actress playing a woman,
yeah,
and that was pretty impressive. That it it felt like two totally different people, but it also felt like the same person. It was
hmm.
really that was interesting, and that they pulled that off really well. But I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, no. I mean, you're good. I mean, you pretty much explained it. It's the fact that it's now that I know what I know about the movie and how they relate, how the characters relate. It's hard for me to explain it without revealing what who they actually are.
Hmm.
So, but I mean, it was pretty. It was played very well. I would say. Just the interaction between the two was played very well. I don't know what I can say without revealing it. So
Well, it's the the performances were great. The visuals were very good. They weren't quite big Hollywood blockbustery, but they were
yeah,
very crisp, and they weren't quite low budget either. So that was great.
yeah,
I enjoyed that very much. The way it was shot, like when they're in the bar, you feel like you're in the bar with them.
yeah,
Um, all the exterior scenes that they sort of created an atmosphere.
yeah,
Um, Something I really liked about it was how low tech it was.
yeah,
And how it was, he basically, his time machine is like a guitar case or a violin case or something with little
yeah,
dials on it that he moves. I thought that was really cool. And something else about it, since we keep hopping around the issue of gender and all that, it actually reminded me of Looper a little bit, which we were going to talk about, but we decided to talk about this anyway. Just this. There's an interview with Rian Johnson, the writer and director of Looper, soon to be writer and director of Star Wars Episode 8.
Could you hold on? I'm sorry, real quick.
No.
Real quick, hold on. Somebody's at the door, and I'm thinking it's one of the sergeants. I'm sorry, people. This is like the first time this happened, but
now Critics Will's in the military, people, so
he might be one of the sergeants. I was just going to make sure. I'll be right back, real quick, people.
Okay, guys.
Sorry.
Go get some snacks. Go get some popcorn. No, you go. I'll just talk to the audience.
Yeah, I'll be back in a minute. Seriously.
So, I'll just keep talking about something. This is very odd. The film, we're not really doing a very good job of reviewing it as a whole because we're not exactly going into the specifics of the plot. And the reason we're avoiding that, and we don't, if you've ever seen this before, we're not shy about spoilers whatsoever because we assume you've probably seen it or won't see it. In this case, I think it's a good idea for you to go in as fresh as possible. Like I said about how the man at the bar wasn't always a man, that's not a big surprise once you start watching the movie. But I can describe the plot a little bit more, I guess. It's that, like I said, in 1981, the time travel was invented. And with time travel being invented, they began to prevent massive crimes to save lives. And that's usually very dangerous when it comes to a time travel film. If you go back in time to change anything, chances are, as we learned in Ray Bradbury's A Sound of Thunder. And I know I said that wrong, but in the Ray Bradbury story, even if you change one little thing, it could change the future forever. And this movie really does that concept in trying to capture the fizzle bomber. And you're not exactly sure on who the fizzle bomber might be, but you have a pretty good idea of who it is, and I won't spoil that, even though I think that was more secondary to the main plot. It wasn't as necessary to what was going on. But now we're back. How was your guest?
It was fine. Actually, it was actually just one of the sergeants that came to look for my roommate, and my roommate's on leave. He already left and went home
Did
for
they
Christmas.
not know that?
No, they didn't.
Sucks to be your roommate when he gets back. Anyway, back to the show. I don't remember what I was saying. Oh, Looper. It reminded me of Looper.
Yep.
Because Rian Johnson was on a podcast with Kevin Smith, and he said that most sci-fi movies, there's an idea that audiences can take one weird idea, they can handle that, but they can't handle two weird ideas. Like Back to the Future, as crazy as that movie is, it's still the weird idea you have to get over is that time travel is possible.
Yeah.
Or the fact that his mom would hit on him when she was a teenager and try to have sex with him in a car, not that weird when you think of time travel. But so in Looper, he made the conscious decision to also include the people with telekinesis.
Yeah.
And which that's weird on its own, like the movie Chronicle. The whole movie is about people who have telekinesis. Looper's an entire movie about people who go back in time to kill themselves, or they send people back in time to be murdered. But there also are people with telekinesis, and it turns out to be very important. This reminded me of that a bit, is that there is a bit of a gender issue, and there's also a weird idea involving astronauts. Women being trained to be astronauts, but not really astronauts, and that was weird. So there's about 2.5 weird ideas in the movie, and then they all coalesced into one really weird thing we keep avoiding. But it's a good film. I think people should should check it out. But it's not my business to recommend movies to people, even though I sometimes do. And I don't know, while you were gone, I was explaining the plot a little bit more, but basically repeating old territory. Anything else you wanted to say on Predestination? Again, it's a hard movie to review without getting into the specifics of it, but it's worth keeping it safe just in case.
I can't say much without revealing the plot or whatever, but I would say give it a look because it was very interesting. For me, it was a new take on time travel. I mean, as far as the actual time travel, it was
just like suddenly hopping back in time, or
as far as the actual time travel, it was cliche, like a bunch of time travel movies, but the story, the characters, and what they go through, that was a new take for me. So
yeah, I can agree with that. So
I would suggest give it a look. I would suggest give it a look. Hey, there's your cat.
Yep, there's my buddy Minkus.
Minkus?
Mm-hmm. Yep, from Boy Meets World.
What's up, bruh?
What's up, bruh? Coming up next, we're going to do another show, a bonus show, where we talk about the Hobbit trilogy. I'm sorry if this show seems a little out of order. It's just because I personally didn't want to spoil it. And like I said, if you've seen the show before, I usually don't give a shit about spoiling anything. But this one is part of the fun. Is watching you. Part of the fun for me was watching it, going, are they really gonna do what I think they're doing, or how are they gonna?
Yeah.
And then watching it work was fun. So I don't want to take that away from anybody. So until about 5 minutes from now, I am non-critic Dustin with me.
And I'm non-critic Will.
And we are predestined to talk about the Hobbit trilogy next. Bye.